10 minutes. Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm from South Africa and I've been living in Singapore for almost 11 years now. Been a citizen for 5 years and yeah, this is my home. So today we're going to make two different versions of focaccia. The main difference between them being that one is a high hydration dough and one is a low hydration dough. The reason for that is that the texture will be different. The low hydration dough tends to have a bit more of a fluffy crumb and the high hydration dough tends to have a more of a creamy crumb with a crunchy texture on the crust. It depends on what you like and what you're making the bread for. At the same time, they require different types of techniques, but we'll be showing you all of those as we go along. Already explained the two types of focaccia we're going to make. Let me show you the flour we're going to use for them. For the stiff dough, we're going to be using the German flour, which is the type 65 and the type 55. People are more familiar with them just being called plain flour and bread flour. The reason we use these guys especially is because they have gone through a patented grain washing method, which not just improves the flavor of it, but also helps to remove the pesticides or any additional microtoxins that might be present in the grain before they're milled down. And then, so the reason we're using these two as a combination is because the bread flour helps us to give the dough a bit of strength, but at the same time, if you have too much of it, for focaccia you don't want to have a lot of elasticity. Elasticity means that the bread, when you try to stretch the dough out, it springs back on you. You don't want that, so we're combining it with 50% of plain flour to remove a bit of that elasticity so that we can shape it a bit easier later on. Then for this wet dough, we're using a combination of the bread flour and especially from Italy, the Durum wheat flour, which gives it a bit more authenticity. And at the same time, because this one has a higher gluten content, it means that it can hold on to the moisture of the high hydration dough a lot better, which makes it easier to work with later on. Then, because we're making these with instant yeast, the one we're using today is called Angel, dry instant yeast. And what's nice about this one is not just because it comes in small packages, because you can, once you open it, you can finish using it really quickly, which also always keeps it fresh, but at the same time because it's vacuum packed. The other nice thing about this one is that it doesn't need to be bloomed ahead of time. You can mix it straight into your dough and it will activate as you develop it and go through the development process. At the same time, we're using a product called Domino Verde here today. This is simply there to improve the structure of your bread. Then we also have what's a very interesting thing here is a very particular strain of the original focaccia from Italy. It's a fully fermented sourdough powder. This is used to help us introduce, because we're using instant yeast to make the process faster for busy home bakers, this helps you to introduce that sourdough flavor and texture that will then not be otherwise available if you don't use this product. So after mixing for about a minute, we're going to add the yeast. For this mix, we'll use about half the packet. And the oil. Olive oil helps to give the dough a bit more extensibility that makes it shape easier later, but it also improves the flavor. The stage we're in at the moment is called stretch and fold. And I need to explain why we're doing stretch and fold. Yes, the purpose is to create strength in your dough. And what does strength mean? To understand what's going on inside the dough is the glutenin and gliadin, which are enzymes that's present in the flour, mixed with water creates gluten. The gluten is not a film that captures the carbon dioxide that's being created through the fermentation. Gluten is more like strings, little strings that's present throughout the dough. So if you imagine it like when you buy a bag of onions, it comes in this netted bag, and that is very similar to actually what's going on inside the dough. All these little strands of gluten that's being formed as we go along. Now you can see here that when I relax the bag, the holes are bigger, but when I stretch the bag, the holes go closer together. And that's the same thing when you do stretch and fold. Why we're folding it, when you fold the net, it creates a mesh which captures the carbon dioxide because the gas bubbles are very small, and that is how we create the lift in the bread. We wet our hands so it doesn't stick because the wet dough tends to stick more. Then we loosen the sides up a bit and we pick it up. I need to bring it closer to me. Thank you for following along with us, and in the next video we'll show you more recipes and more creations. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram and YouTube, we'd greatly appreciate that. And don't forget to visit our website at www.biocreations.asia. Thank you.